yourself a bad day, dark feelings are back, assaulting your heart with a panic attack.
Hello and welcome to yet another edition of the Andy's Man Club podcast. Really enjoying our latest series, and we're joined again today by another fantastic guest. Thank you to everybody that's liked, shared, listened to, commented on anything about the series so far. And as I say, we're really excited to get delved into yet another really exciting episode. Joined by, as I say, another fantastic guest. So, as we always do within an Andy's Man Club, anybody that's been to an Andy's Man Club before will know that I always say, do you want to introduce yourself and give us a positive reason for you being here? I'll just turn off my WhatsApp that's just started to make noises throughout the session as well, prepared as ever. So, yeah, do you want to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about the reasons why you wanted to come along to talk to Andy's Man Club and you know, a little bit from there?
Yeah, so my name's Joe Forrester. I'm a TV and radio presenter, and one of the reasons and the ways I became aware of your guys' work is a couple of years ago, I suppose, I started what I would call my mental health journey. And you find yourself looking out for resources and ways that you can help yourself and become take a more positive approach to your own mental health. And Andy's Man Club was one of the things I came across.
Brilliant. Are you happy to go into a little bit about what sort of prompted that mental health journey, if you like? It's we always find that the more people are willing to open up and talk, and especially somebody yourself with a little bit of a public platform, that can help so many other people know that something like Andy's Man Club is in existence and help to get them through that door, really. So do you want to tell us a little bit about that journey, Joe, if you can do?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's kind of, for me, I think I'm part of a generation of guys of kind of, I think like a lot are, who never really talked about anything. And not because there was any particular kind of social conditioning, you just didn't. You just grew up and you didn't talk, and you pressed everything down and never really acknowledged it and put a positive face on it. And that was kind of the case with me. And then after kind of a series of the things going wrong in relationships and work projects that I'd worked incredibly hard on, kind of falling apart, just one day in February 2019, I woke up and I couldn't get out of bed. And I'd never experienced that before. I'd always kind of been relentlessly upbeat. And I found it quite alarming and I found it quite scary. And I think when that kind of happens and you have no energy to get out of bed, you have no energy to kind of do anything to really look after yourself properly. And then when you start to think kind of in abstract ways about things like suicide and stuff like that, that's very, very frightening. And my kind of issue and what I realized, this is something actually been going on for me a couple of years before that. And the way that I had kind of dealt with that was generally drinking. And that, as we all know, makes things a lot worse when it's not done in a safe way. And yeah, I kind of realized it took about 6 months to even kind of see anybody on the NHS in terms of therapy and stuff like that. It's just, it's hugely oversubscribed, the mental health services for the NHS. So I started looking around for other things to try and help myself, because while I felt like I was at rock bottom, I knew I didn't want to stay there.
Brilliant. That last thing that you've said there, I think is hugely inspirational, that while you're at rock bottom, you knew you didn't want to stay there. That to me is such a positive outlook on, when you're in such a, pardon my French, but such a shit frame of mind, as you said, you're in a situation where you can't even get out of bed, but you don't want to stay there. You just want to power on through that. That's nothing short of inspirational, Joe. Massive, that. Just to sort of say as well, relatable as well in so many different ways. There'll be many people out there that maybe heard me speak throughout my role as Andy's Man Club, and I always talk and say that, the situation that I found myself in was one where I didn't want to speak and I didn't want to open up. I think social attitudes towards men speaking, hopefully they're changing now, but, back sort of for me, I've been involved with Andy's Man Club 4 years. Before that, I didn't speak about anything. I just felt so awkward and uncomfortable, and, it was just one of those things of, no, I'll be fine, it'll be all right, you just leave me to it. And similar to what you said, I think the amount of times I'd find my problems at the bottom of a pint glass was unreal.
Yeah.
So how, obviously, you're in that situation where you're wanting to not stay there. What sort of things did you do to get yourself from the situation that you were in at rock bottom?
I always found there was a couple of things that helped me, even if they're kind of just temporary distractions. The first of those was working out. Any sort of physical exercise really, really helps. And about 10 months ago, I discovered boxing. And that's been life-changing. Because I was still, it was kind of 18 months on, I was up and down, getting better in patches, then not. And just finding that release of kind of intense physical exercise, also kind of like this communal vibe. You're kind of all in there, you're training together and getting out and doing something social that wasn't having 6, 7, 8 pints and engaging in self-destructive behavior. The other thing for me has always been to laugh and find a way to laugh. I love comedy. So whether that's kind of distracting myself by watching Friends for the 1000th time or listening to old podcasts that I love. I love all the old Russell Brand podcasts and all the old Ricky Gervais podcasts. And even though I've heard them all 20 times a piece, just, I think being able to laugh releases endorphins. And I just found that a helpful distraction.
Love that. Absolutely love that. Like you say, we hear quite a lot of the things that some of the questions that we use in Andy's Man Club are things like, you know, what was something that made you laugh and all the different types of things. So yeah, I can massively relate on that. Throughout this series, we've spoken to quite a number of people who are in quite a similar situation to yourself in being in that sort of TV presenter-y, actor-y sort of background. And I think the common theme with those people that we've spoken to has been just how easy it is when you're working in those sort of industries to just slap that mask on, because that's almost what you have to do anyway. If you're going on to present a radio station or some sort of TV program or to go and act, you almost have to be upbeat to be able to go and do those things. Yeah. Is that something that you can sort of relate to as well in those sort of ways of just going and trying to be Mr. Happy and Mr. Smiley and
Yeah, weirdly, I actually always found work kind of helpful because I was kind of forced to be upbeat and stuff, even though I wasn't in the right frame of mind. If I had to go and do a 4-hour football show or whatever on the radio and just have some fun, it made me feel a little bit better because it found like it gave me a purpose. But then afterwards, it's almost like a drug, because afterwards you go home and you're on your own and you crash and you're still there and you still don't want to get out of bed. Also, I think there's kind of that image of, because you do kind of need to be the life and soul, and you have to be relentlessly upbeat and positive and energetic, that bleeds into your private life a little bit. And it's taken a huge amount for me to even start having conversations with my friends where I say, I'm actually a little bit unhappy, or things have made me a little bit unhappy. And I feel like, so in a way it was a help, but it was also a hindrance.
Right. Okay. With those discussions that you'd had with those people that you were starting to open up with, what sort of reactions did you get? Did you get any, massive positives, or did you get any sort of resistance as well?
I think it's quite a good broad spectrum of male friendship, because I spoke to one of my friends who I have quite like a emotionally explicit relationship with, and he was fantastic. And he said, look, this happened to me too. And you've just got to take one day at a time, and you've just got to know that it does get better and take small steps to make yourself feel better. And kind of gave me that positive reinforcement, that advice, and some of those cliches, but they're cliches because they work. Yeah. And I had another friend who is probably even more emotionally closed off than me. And he said, oh, no, don't. He said, oh, don't worry. You've got nothing to be depressed about. Other people have it worse. And it's like, yeah, I know, but kind of by that logic, there's very few people in the world that should be able to feel sorry for themselves, because somebody else has always got it worse than us. And when you kind of get knocked back like that, it does set you back a little bit. Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's certainly something that I remember, around the times where, again, many people probably heard me speak about it through businesses and various different things, that the way that I was behaving around the time when I really needed to come to Andy's Man Club was I had my head buried in the sand to such a degree that I didn't see a change in myself. It actually took family members and various different things to get hold of me. But I remember once being in a situation, sat around with some other people, and somebody just turned around and said exactly that. Well, what have you got to be depressed about? You've got a great job, you've got a missus, you've got a kid, you've got all these different things. What have you got to be depressed about? And it actually had the opposite effect on me. It actually had the sort of, well, they really don't get me then, do they? Yeah. They really don't understand that this is not something that I'm not choosing to be in this situation. I'm not, and we've always said it as well, haven't we, that mental health, depression, whatever, particular issue that you're dealing with at that particular time, it doesn't discriminate.
You know, you're somebody who, again, has something more of a public life than many other people. And I think when people are in that sort of environment, they sort of think, well, he's rich and famous, and he's doing a job that I'd love to do, and all the rest of it. Is that something as well that you've had an experience of?
I mean, I wish I was rich. Yeah.
I think that's that public perception, isn't it? They think it only works within this sort of arena, that fame and fortune and riches come along with that, and what's got to be depressed about?
Absolutely. And it's because I think a lot of people, especially work colleagues, the only time they see you is on work mode, where you're at 110% and you might be at an event or whatever, or filming in the studio. So yeah, that's you, but it's a very heightened version of you. Like I'm not like that when I go home. It would be exhausting. I think one of the most interesting things actually my mum said to me, she said, the thing is, it's an illness, and if you broke your arm, you would go to A&E. So when this happens, you need to go and get medical help as well. It's the same thing.
Yeah, definitely. Completely and 100% agree. I mean, you're talking about the sort of work environment there. I was really fortunate. Earlier this year, I found myself in a situation where I think I'd taken a massive dip and a massive blip, and I've spoken about it before, and I think because of lockdown and various different things like that, I'd stopped looking after myself and stopped doing the things that I knew were positive for me. I was really, really fortunate that even though, we're in a bit of a work mode as well when we're doing talks, presentations, things like that, people here had recognised the change in me and just offered me nothing but unequivocal support. And it's great to see that when that sort of environment is the one that you're in, just how supported you can feel. But yeah, it's quite an amazing thing to see just how many people rally behind you as well. Through Andy's Man Club as well, obviously the amount of support, and you can probably guess, can't you? I've just done a presentation before I've jumped on this podcast, so I'm almost still in presentation mode, and I'm talking about a lot of the things that sort of happen with me. But I talk within that about the support that I first felt when I went into an Andy's Man Club, and through the one mate that you did speak about there that was really emotionally open to you. Once you'd spoken to them and felt accepted, what sort of feelings did that bring out within you? We've already talked about how I felt when somebody reacted somewhere quite similar to how you had it, in that they turn around, so what have you got to be depressed about? Get over it, and sort of thing. But just flip that on its head for a minute. How did it feel to actually know that actually there's somebody out here that's not only offering me help, support, and an ear and everything else? What sort of feelings and emotions did that evoke with you?
I thought that was amazing. The thing that I always had was I had an almost physical reaction to talking about emotions. So I remember talking about this kind of with ex-partners and whatever. I would physically not be able to say how I feel, kind of make my palms sweat, make me feel so anxious, not be able to make eye contact with them. And I realized that, okay, so my friend was there, I could speak to him, and I do have another friend who I can talk to as well. And I thought, actually, the trick is you've just got to start. And it's horrible, but you just open your mouth and start talking, and whatever comes out, comes out. And once it does, it feels so much better. But you've just got, it's almost kind of like jumping out of the plane or something. You've just got to open your mouth and start talking. And that's the hardest bit.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the jumping out of a plane analogy, that's never really something I'll do. Vixie tomorrow, did it last week, and I've still got no idea why. But yeah, like I said, that whole sort of talking and opening up, again, when I first started talking and opening up, I think there's a certain amount of expectation on a gentleman such as myself, because I am quite, I'm a sporty sort of guy, probably not judging by my weight anymore, but, back in the day, 4 years ago, I was quite active. And, 6'3", and, that outgoing lad, that, fella that does everything like that. But I was feeling that sort of burden and that sort of, people don't expect me to speak. When I started, getting me to shut up was the trick. Absolutely, the feeling of euphoria I got from speaking was absolutely amazing. So, we sort of touched briefly on lockdown there. We're in the situation now where, touch wood, we're getting closer and closer towards the world reopening, and, the sort of projects that you work on, Joe, starting to reopen. How have you found the whole period over the last sort of 12 or 18 months, and how has that, first of all, impacted on you, and how have you dealt with it? What sort of positive ways have you found to embrace the world and get out and about and do things like that.
To be honest with you, I genuinely feel like lockdown saved my life in many ways, because ever since this kind of happened in February 2019, there was kind of periods where I'd get better and I have therapy and whatever, and then there'd be periods where I get worse. And also just having such a terrible time trying to control drinking. And then kind of when I drink leads to drug use sometimes. And obviously that destroys your body's ability to create serotonin, literally makes you unable to feel happy. So when you're already depressed and having mental health problems, I think that's the worst thing you can do. And it was very much a symptom of the depression, because I would drink too much and then suddenly my brain would turn off and I think, oh, I feel a little bit better actually. Now I've had 3 pints, suddenly I don't seem to have any problems. And then it would always go too far, and then the next week would be horrific. Anyway, when the lockdown happened, I went and stayed with my mum, who moved out of London a few years ago. So she moved out of London a few years ago. She's got a little cottage in a village out in Surrey. And I went and stayed there, and I didn't drink for 10 weeks. I just stayed there, hung out with my mum, went for walks in the countryside and just kind of relaxed. And she said to me that she kind of felt that she was worried about me when I turned up, and she could see the weight of the world kind of coming off my shoulders by the end of it. And it was just a chance to firstly break that unhelpful and unhealthy relationship with alcohol. And on top of that, once that's dealt with, to kind of think, okay, what do I want to do moving forward? What do I want out of life? And it genuinely really refocused me personally and professionally. It's probably worth saying that in the last few weeks, I've had my first dip since then.
Okay.
And that's a number of things. I think kind of the world opened up again. So instead of just maybe sitting on the sofa and having a couple of beers or whatever and watching a film, suddenly you're in the pub and the football's on, and you kind of fall back into old habits if you're not very careful. So kind of, I have found myself drinking too much as the lockdowns ended. And I have felt that work pressure coming back, and also split up with my girlfriend recently. And it's kind of not been taking it very well. So I've reverted back to those old habits. But I think kind of because I've been through it before, say the journey in total has been 20 steps. I don't feel like I'm back to square one. I feel like maybe I've taken a couple of steps back, but there's still progress. And now I can sit down and look and go, and I literally felt to myself today, okay, this afternoon, I'm going to do a note on my phone of positive steps I can take in my life right now to control the things I can and make myself feel happier. And that's because I've got that knowledge and that self-awareness from the first lockdown, where I kind of made real progress.
I love that. That goes back to this very similar situation that we had, when you first started talking, that, you're in a situation where you've had a dip, but you're recognizing that, and you already know the strategies that you're going to put in place. Are you willing to share a couple of those strategies with us? Because it might help some people out there that are maybe in that sort of same situation now, as much or as little as obviously you feel comfortable to do so. I just want to thank you hugely as well for your honesty as well through the last 5 minutes of conversation there, Joe. It's massive. And to see, guys opening up on this level before we've even got into our little section of Andy's Man Club in the middle of the podcast. Brilliant that, you're so willing to speak. I think it just shows the power of talking.
Yeah.
As I said, do you have any, if you want to share a couple of those strategies that you're going to look at, that I think could be really helpful for some of the guys.
Do you know what? I think it's about doing little manageable things to be kind to yourself. So I think we've all got this thing, and we've probably all got it on our phone. We've got a note with a to-do list, which always gets longer. And even when you knock something off, 2 more things go on. And what I started doing was keeping a to-do list of a couple of things every day that were nice. So whether that was I'm in Southwest London. So whether that was okay, I'm going to take the afternoon off and go to Richmond Park for a walk, or I'm going to go swimming, or I'm going to make sure that I make it to boxing tonight, or I'm just going to sit down and rewatch a couple of my favorite episodes of The Sopranos. Things like that would go on my to-do list. So then you get that kind of feedback because you've achieved something, but you've done something that gives you pleasure as well. I think the problem with with depression in particular is it's about frustration and feeling impotent and unable to control the things that are affecting your life. So even taking tiny steps to be able to control small things, I personally found hugely helpful.
Yeah, massive, absolutely enormous. You know, like you said there, just sitting down and revisiting something. But, you know, I love every single one of those. Control the controllables is something that we talk about so often in Andy's Man Club, and the things that you can control. Interesting as well that you touched on the Sopranos there. As long as you don't find yourself when you're out swimming, sat in a swimming pool with a load of ducks, you'll be all right, I suppose.
Well, it's weird actually, because The Sopranos is actually quite insightful about depression and therapy. Yeah. And there's a lot of stuff. I remember there's an episode where Dr. Melfi says to Tony that depression is rage turned inwards. And I thought, that is so true. It's that anger about not being able to control those things, and it just kind of forces an inner collapse. So yes, I've learned my psychology from Tony Soprano.
Good as well that you sort of spoke there about keeping a to-do list of things that you like to do. Something that I spoke about this a couple of weeks ago. I've recently been through a course of counselling as well. Something we talked about was just having a little jar on your desk. And when you do something that, you know, is either, oh yeah, I've been meaning to tick that off my list for a couple of weeks, write it on a piece of paper, screw it up, put it in there. And then in a couple of weeks' time, when you're sort of thinking to yourself, you know, I've not achieved anything today, bloody hell, you know, you just reach one of those days where you're just coming up across, you know, barrier after barrier after barrier. You can just pick something out of that and just go, yeah, do you know what? I have achieved something. Maybe, you know, it might not have been today. It might have been yesterday or 2-3 days ago. But yeah, it's just been one of those days. And it just allows you to sort of, you know, compartmentalize it in your brain and sort of go, actually, yeah, do you know what? It's been one of those days where I've met a couple of, you know, obstacles today, but it doesn't mean I'm not able to achieve.
Yeah, I think that's one of the issues, isn't it? Because one of the things that kind of comes along with being depressed is you start to think you're useless and you're pointless and you can't do anything. And people often, when they're trying to help you, say, oh no, well, look at this and look at this and look at this. And you think, oh no, anyone could have done that. Oh no, what? You find reasons to dislike yourself. So yeah, I love that positive reinforcement for yourself and going, yeah, I did do that. I did put that shelf up or whatever it was. It's like just a tiny thing that shows you can take action.
Definitely. But I think we're at a decent enough sort of, you know, lead in there. I think it works quite nicely for us to go into our little Andy's Man Club section. Obviously, within every single one of our podcasts, the middle section, we use that week's Andy's Man Club questions. So for those that aren't aware, Andy's Man Club, all 51 of our clubs we're at now, growing on an almost weekly basis. Every single one of those clubs runs in exactly the same way. They have the same list of questions. Those questions are literally there just to facilitate a bit of conversation. Guys can talk as much or as little as they feel comfortable to do so. And I think it fits in quite nicely now. So welcome to Andy's Man Club. If we could just sort of, you know, talk as much or as little as you feel comfortable to do so. 3 subjects that I'd ask us to not discuss, please. Those being politics, religion and medication. So politics and religion, 2 very divisive subjects. What can be the pillar for one person is the exact opposite for the other. And obviously, as a peer-to-peer support group, we're not able to offer any advice on medication or anything like that. So without further ado, I think we've already done the name and a positive reason for being here in the last sort of 25 minutes. So I think what we'll do is go straight into what other question number 1 we normally have, which is, how's your week been? My week this week, just off the back of the conversation that we had there about little productive things, has been hugely productive. I've felt the benefits of the world reopening a little bit throughout the work that I do. I've been able to go out and meet a few more people and, you know, get face to face and talk a little bit about Andy's Man Club. And obviously the power of when we talk about Andy's Man Club and the presentations that we deliver, to see the power of those in people's faces has been, you know, a massive catalyst. It's something that I've always enjoyed doing, and it's almost felt as though I've had to have the brakes on that side of my job over the last year. So now to be in a position where I'm able to go out and deliver some of these face-to-face is brilliant. So yeah, little wins here and there. And then over the weekend, I'm not sure when this will be broadcast, but I'm about to give away when it was recorded. I watched the England game at the weekend. My little boy, since lockdown, I think I speak about this every single time, has taken a huge liking for football, and the fact that the Euros are on now has really helped him. So yeah, we spent a bit of time on Sunday afternoon watching the football together. So a really hugely positive week. really enjoyable and great to, you know, be able to start looking forward. Hopefully, touch wood, if we got anything wooden about, you know, touch cardboard. You know, we can start to start looking at, you know, some of the other things that we can start opening and getting out and about and revisiting some of our clubs around the country. So I'm really enthused at the moment and really sort of looking forward. And, you know, it's been a difficult last year. I've likened it to somebody this morning who's living life with the brakes on. Whereas now we're just able to just ease off them a little bit, which is feeling a little bit better. And to be able to see some of those benefits has been really positive for me. So really enjoyable week and really enthused. Joe, how's your week been?
I think not quite as positive as yours. It's been, to be honest, as I mentioned to you earlier, I've been kind of having a bit of a hard time recently. That kind of was inspired by splitting up with my girlfriend. Not my choice, and it kind of obviously put me in quite a dark place, because I think one of the things that has always been quite triggering for me is this kind of idea of rejection. There's also a bit of frustration because I don't feel like we should have split up and it was her choice. But anyway, that's kind of caused a bit of a relapse, I suppose I would say. And on top of that, probably not been dealing with it in the best way, because I've been finding myself in the pub quite a lot with the Euros and stuff being on. That being said, I kind of do recognise that, and I'm putting positive barriers in place now to kind of deal with that day by day as much as I can. The other great thing about the Euros, of course, I also watched the England game on Sunday, so that was fantastic. There's nothing like a football tournament. I think it's those people who say they'd rather see their club side win the Premier League than England win the World Cup. I do not understand. There is absolutely no. There's nothing like it. I mean, everybody's supporting the same team. It's kind of magical. You're not arguing with your friends about football for once, or if you are, you're arguing about team selection for the same team. So that's fantastic. I work a lot in sports. I've been able to watch 3 football matches a day and pass it off as work. It's fantastic.
We're taking you away from a football match now, because it's about 2:30. There's a game on now, isn't there? Have you got it on your screen?
No, there is a 2 o'clock kickoff. I'm going to have to catch up on the highlights later, but I'll be watching the 5 and the 8 o'clock. Yeah, so that's been really, really good. On that note, I had a new podcast start, which is for an American audience, but also here in the UK, which is a football, soccer podcast, kind of explaining the Euros, and then that's going to be an ongoing thing. And also found out today that the documentary that I've been kind of working on for a while might happen and might end up being put on television. And that is about mental health and drugs and things like that as well. So it's something really, really close to my heart. So while I'm kind of keep thinking about the bad stuff, I need to remember there's also this good stuff as well. And I am making myself aware of that.
Brilliant. Yeah, like you said, even though there's been tough spots through that, I'm hearing quite a few positives as well, in the fact that, as we've already said, you're able to acknowledge those things that are going wrong and you know, acknowledge that, you know, maybe your coping strategies that, you know, they're easy to fall back into, or maybe not the best ones. And, you know, that they're huge positives, I think. You know, the fact that there's maybe been a negative situation contributing to that is, you know, it's one of those things. It's life, isn't it? It's, you know, for want of a better phrase, this sort of shit's going to go down. It's going to happen. And, you know, the positive thing is that you've got strategies and things in place to be able to deal with that. And I'm really inspired by that, Joe. So thank you. Second question in Andy's Man Club every single week is always, what's been one positive from your week? Positive for me this week would be, it was either last Wednesday or Thursday. I can't remember what day it was. And it goes back to with getting out and about. I went into a organisation in Manchester and delivered an Andy's Man Club talk. And just the fact that the talk itself probably takes about half an hour to get through, and, you know, it just talks about who we are, what we are, where we do it. The chat that we had afterwards was about 45 minutes or an hour. So this had prompted just so many positive responses from people, and so many positive different ways of talking about these different things. And just to be able to be face to face and have those discussions with people and get that positivity vibe, and, you know, it just felt like, wow, this is almost what I've been missing. Do you know what I mean? This face-to-face contact, and, you know, it felt really, really good. And you know, that was a huge positive for my week. And touch wood, I'm on cardboard, I've got no wood. I'm in the process of being able to organise another couple of, you know, again, they're socially distanced, and, you know, we cover everything that we need to cover. But, you know, just to get out and about and to people see their reactions and then prompt conversations is something that I'm really looking forward to. So I'm in the process of planning in another couple of those as well in the next week or two. So that's been a positive from my week. What about yourself?
Yeah, I think kind of getting out and about again. On Saturday afternoon, me and a couple of my mates went and played squash. So again, it's only a small thing, but I love squash. It's amazing fun. And we kind of played like a little round robin, like one on, one off for about 2 hours. And I genuinely believe in the healing power of exercise. It's a form of meditation as far as I'm concerned. And it's just a proper laugh, just hanging out with your mates and playing a bit of sport. And that was a real simple positive.
Definitely. And, you know, as we all know, it's well documented, isn't it? The link between positive mental health and exercise and the endorphins that releases and the, you know, the positive mind frame that can put you in as well. So I love that. Question number 3 is there anything you've got to get off your chest? I'm not in a position at this moment in time where I've got anything to get off my chest. I was fortunate enough that last night was Andy's Man Club. Anything that, you know, was sort of weighing me down, or not weighing me down, it was, you know, I was able to you know, discuss it in there, and I'm in a fortunate position where today I've not really got anything that I need to get off my chest. Anything from yourself, Joe?
I think it's just that I've been taking this breakup quite badly, and it's forced me back into some quite self-destructive old habits, and I need to take ownership of that and do what I can in order to fix the things that I can.
I think from the discussion we've already had, it's safe to say that you're already doing that. You know, I agree with you. I don't think the process is by any means over. It's, you know, but full credit to yourself that you've put these things in place. You're focusing on different ways of being able to deal with that. So I think that huge positives are the fact that you're already taking ownership. You're already taking strategies and ways forward. So yeah, I absolutely love that. So brilliant. Question number 4. Where are we? Bear with me. I've just pulled my phone out to try and remember what question number 4 was last night. Question number 4. If you could improve one thing in your life right now, what would it be and why? Now, I alluded to this a little bit earlier, and I'm really fortunate that, again, similar to yourself in the last question, this is already something that I've started to make some sort of progress with. I'm now, you know, I'm not a million miles away from 40 years of age, and started to notice that maybe my spread around my middle is starting to grow a little bit. And, you know, when I was a bloke in my 20s, it was always really easy to eat what I wanted and then go play football at the weekend. And, you know, it just seemed to maintain. Whereas now I'm not necessarily in that same sort of bracket. And the tub, for want of a better phrase, is a little bit harder to shift. But we're really fortunate that within the office that we have here at Andy's Man Club, I'm in the office today, we have a gym, and we have an area that we can go and do some physical exercise in there. And we're encouraged by Andy's Man Club and the trustees and what have you to go and do that. So it's something that I've already started to do. So the one thing that I think I need to do is adapt my diet. You know, I think the link between, you know, physical health, mental health, and everything else, you know, just spoken about it there with the fitness, but what you put in this end could affect what's up here as well as obviously around there. So yeah, my diet is something that I'm mindful. It's not something that's necessarily at the top of my list, I would say. It's you know, I like my food. You know, I'm a bloke that enjoys a treat and things like that. But yeah, just again, getting a little bit more ownership of that is something that I'd like to change at this moment in time. So, Joe, if there was one thing in your life that you could change right now, what would it be and why?
Yeah, I think it's again about forming positive habits. And for me, at the moment, that would certainly be getting control of drinking. And very simply, I think the solution to that is, where is there booze? It's in the pub. We'll stay out the pub. Like go and do something else. And it's kind of, I've got in control of it before, and I can get in control of it again. And I'm drinking too much because I'm down, but then that makes you feel worse. So I can't control how down I feel, but I can control how much I drink. So it's about making those simple changes. And it's really, it is quite straightforward. It's just, don't make that decision not to walk into the pub. And that's it. And when your mates say, do you want to meet up and go to the pub? Even if you've got to lie and make up an excuse, then just stay out of there until like I feel like I'm in control of it again. And that's the decision that I've made.
Love it. Yeah, like you said, don't ever feel as though you've got to, do something for somebody else's reasons. Like you said there, if you've got to make up an excuse, that's what works for you, do it. Yeah, fully on board with that. So cheers, Joe. Question number 5 then is our quick fire question. And last night it was, if you were to go on to I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here, or a desert island or somewhere like that, what would your luxury item be? Mine would be something to do with music. Now, they're not going to let me take an iPod or anything like that, are they? I don't suppose. But, something I can have music on. It's a massive crutch as far as I'm concerned. I can get myself into lots and lots of different frames of mind through what I'm listening to. I've definitely fallen into that trap in the past of being down and then listening to sad songs and getting even further down. But I've also found the positive effects of music in that sense as well, and getting to a position whereby, right, I feel a bit shit. What can I put on? Either something that's going to make me sing, while I'm driving home. If I've had, one of those days we talked about earlier where I've just met brick wall after brick wall after brick wall, put something on that I'm going to belt out at, that people are going to look at me funny when I'm sat at traffic lights and, what's this guy doing and what's he singing there and all the rest of it. But by the time I get home, that's been quite cathartic. It's almost like a form of exercise, I suppose. It's just belting it out. But yeah, it can take me on so many different journeys and put me in different places and different memories and all sorts of different things. So yeah, mine would have to be something related to music and somewhere to play music. If I'm on a desert island, I won't take my vinyls because they'll warp. But we'll find some way of playing music. What would your luxury item be, Joe?
That's so true, isn't it? Actually, I'm just thinking that when you do find yourself down in the dumps and you end up listening to like Adele or something, you think, what am I doing? This isn't going to help.
I'm going to level with you, Joe. There's not that much Adele on my playlist anyway. Okay.
So I think mine, again, similar sort of thing. I mean, if they would let me have an iPod with unlimited access to podcasts and audiobooks, it's the same thing for me. I listen in my flat, walking around, I listen to podcasts, audiobooks all day, every day. I think it's the reason why I work in the business that I do. I just love that, telling stories and being told stories. And I think if I'm on a desert island, I think I could get through a lot of good audiobooks.
Definitely. It's whether or not they'd allow you an iPod and things like that, I suppose. But this is our question. We're allowed an iPod. We'll go with it. So thank you for taking part in Andy's Man Club, Joe. That's literally as simple as it goes, and guys can talk as much or as little as they feel comfortable to do so in any of those questions. And as I say, literally those were the questions we used in our club last night. So hopefully some of the guys that are maybe out there that are maybe a little bit tentative about coming along, that can maybe help some of these through and just see that the sessions exist in exactly the same way that we've just done it there, that just guys sat around talking. Sometimes they go a little bit deeper, and obviously I've had a really positive week. You've not had the same experience, but to be able to meet on that level and just sort of go, yeah, do you know what? Hopefully a little bit of positivity can help you, and a little bit of the opposite side of life can maybe help me as well. So hopefully that's been beneficial.
Yeah,
we're going to come on to we're sort of getting closer towards the end now, and we always finish off our podcast with a little bit of something we call 3, 2, 1. And I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit, but as I said, the industry you work in, you'll be used to that. You'll be quite happy to sort of roll with the punches. And we're going to look at talking to you, first of all, about 3 ways that you promote positive mental health. That can be within yourself or externally, or ways that you would, prompt other people to do so. Then we're going to get 2 pieces of advice from you that you'd like to share, please. And then beyond that is 1 thing that's made you smile or laugh recently. So I've given you probably 10 seconds to think about it there. So what are 3 ways that you promote positive mental health?
3 ways to promote positive mental health. The first one absolutely would be to exercise. I know we've touched on it before. It's meditation. It releases endorphins. It's very good for you physically and mentally. So absolutely, I would suggest doing that. I would just think, remember to be kind to yourself as well, and don't beat yourself up for doing things. If you do want to sit down and just watch half an hour of a comedy or whatever, or you want to chill out and read your book, just acknowledge that being kind to yourself is as important as ticking anything else off your to-do list. So bear that in mind as well. And a third thing, what's the third thing I would say? Oh, yeah, I think if you do have something that makes you smile, for me, humor is everything. And if you can watch or listen to something that makes you laugh and that helps release that positive energy, then actively seek that out.
Brilliant. Love those. You know, especially that middle one you mentioned there. I absolutely love that. I think that's brilliant. So thank you so much for that. 2 pieces of advice that you'd like to share with us, please. And it can be advice on anything whatsoever. It can be don't eat yellow snow. It can be don't take the 2:30 at Kempton Park, whatever it might be. But 2 pieces of advice that you'd like to share with us, please.
So it sounds very contrite and it is a cliche, but this will pass and things do pass. And yeah, you're going to have to ride it out and you're going to have to sweat it out in the meantime, but it gets better day by day. And in the meantime, distract yourself, do positive things. And if you keep going like that and keep putting positive patterns of behavior into place, then things will get better, and they will. And I promise they will. And I know that because I've been through it. The second thing I think, and I love this, is starve the ego, feed the soul. So remember why you're doing things. If you're doing things for the wrong reason, then have a look at that. If you're not doing it to be kind to yourself or another person, then don't do it, because ultimately being kind to each other is all we got. So you may as well put that at the heart of everything.
Brilliant. And do you know what? I'm going to write that down. The starve the ego, feed the soul. I love that. I think I'm going to speak to Lucas, who looks after our marketing here as well. We're going to make that the title of this podcast. I think that's such a great little mantra. You know, it fits in so many different ways as well. Like you say, if you're not doing things for the right reasons, then why do them?
Yeah.
I absolutely love that. Thank you so much. One thing as well that's made you smile or laugh recently, I'm guessing this probably not going to be too difficult for you with the amount of comedy you watch.
Yeah, that's pretty easy, actually. I've been re-listening to all of the first 5 series of My Dad Wrote a Porno.
All right, yeah.
With the podcast, and it's just so good. If you haven't heard it, check it out. It's so funny, and it's made me laugh out loud, which has been very helpful.
Yeah, I managed to get maybe the first 3 series, I think, of that. Before you know what life's like with podcasts and things like that. You don't go back to it and things like that. But yeah, the first 3 series of that were brilliant.
Yeah,
I really enjoyed that as well. So fantastic. Recommending podcasts as well. I like it. A little bit of a pass the pod almost. It's like a little bit of a nod to other podcasts as well. So Joe, one thing I want to say to you just off the back of what we've spoken about today is just huge thanks for your honesty and openness.
Thank you.
You've shown that you're really not uncomfortable talking about difficulties within life and situations that you've been through, you know, throughout the last few months, years, however long, but then also really recently. I think that's got a real resonance and will help so many people in the moment as well. So huge thank you for you coming on today with such an open mind and you know, discussing the things that you've discussed. I think it's been massive. So thank you.
Yeah, listen, thank you as well for having me. It just goes to show I feel better now than I did at the start of the record, because it's as simple as that. Just talking about it, it does help. So yeah, so thank you.
No, it's an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for coming and joining us. Thank you so much for, you know, everything that you do. It's brilliant, and look forward to seeing you out and about on more and more things in the really near future. So thanks so much. Look forward to seeing you soon, and it's okay to talk.
Thanks.